I still remember a few years back there was this hyped up game called My Number 9 that was supposed to be the Mega Man series making its great big comeback. After all, Mega Man Legends 3 had been cancelled and Kenji Ifume was no longer at Capcom. Every single retro 8-bit gamer was throwing their money at it, and literally nobody had any second thoughts about it. After tons of drama, including additional Kickstarters by Kenji Ifume, including one for a different game entirely, and the hiring of a community manager who had not only never played a Mega Man game before, but who would also happen to be a social justice warrior who banned people from the forums for no reason, along with frequent delays, the community has pretty much turned on this game. Communities that were flooded with discussion of this game aren't even mentioning it anymore, despite the fact that a demo has now been released to many people of this game. After hearing all the criticism of this game on social media websites such as Twitter, I decided to snag a copy of the demo and try it myself. I decided to record this game on a PC with an R9 380, an i5 2400, and 8 gigs of RAM, and I also did some additional play testing on lower end computers with lower specs. And now it's time for me to give my thoughts on the game. Now first let's talk about the game itself, gameplay wise. The gameplay is that of a 2D side-scroller rendered in 3D by the Unreal Engine 3, which is notable for use in tons of major last-gen games from nearly every publisher in nearly every genre possible. When you boot the game up, it recommends that you use a controller, and it's easy to see why. This is a game that's designed to be on literally every system you can currently buy at your local Best Buy store, and due to this the controls have been designed around a controller. However, there is a keyboard and mouse mapping that maps the click buttons to fire and dash and uses the WASD keys to move your character around. This actually works surprisingly well. However, you can use your Xbox controllers if you want to, just like with any other modern PC game. The quality of the gameplay, however, is mediocre. Your character has limited movement possibilities, however the gameplay was designed to be as cheap as possible. The game is literally packed with cheap deaths, death pits, and enemies that are a pain to hit because you can only shoot forward. The dash feature, however, is especially broken. Hitting the dash button takes some of the control away from your jumps, making jumping less precise and cheap deaths all the more commonplace. This also makes the gameplay even more frustrating, as you'll find yourself running into death traps or objects that eat away at your health faster than you can say $4 million. Despite this, to charge up your character and take out enemies faster, you need to run into enemies after hitting them a few times using the dash function, so the game highly encourages it. At least from what I could tell, there's no charging up your shots like in many other Mega Man titles, either, as holding the button down doesn't do anything, and I couldn't find an option either for it in-game. Nor was I told this by the tutorial level which you're forced to go through. All in all, the gameplay is highly frustrating and just flat out trash. However, I could see how this would appeal to the crowd who finds games with broken, clunky controls difficult because, clunky controls are such difficulty and make the game require a lot of skill, am I right? Now, as for the presentation, the music was pretty bland and simply felt like it just faded into the background like you'd find in an elevator, and the voice acting is pretty bad. However, the worst part about the presentation is the fact that the game is technically poor. Remember when I said the game used the Unreal Engine 3, the engine that was used for a variety of huge games last gen? Despite the fact that this game uses the Unreal Engine 3, the game looks like a PlayStation 2 game at worst, and a subpar Xbox 360 launch title at best. Optimization, however, is a lot worse. While the game ran smooth on my R9 380 system, it ran a lot worse on a system which also had a quad-core CPU and also had 8 gigs of RAM, but only an AMD 5450, which was rebranded 3 times, of course. And considering how even that can run games from when the Unreal Engine was new at better frame rates, it's pathetic how I had to change it down to 640 by 480 at the lowest settings and still wasn't able to hit 60 frames a second, which seems to be a requirement for platformer games like this. Now, while optimization might improve by the time the game is out, since modern games have had a poor track record at this, I highly doubt it will. If you are interested in this game but happen to be an eMachines gamer, I'd suggest buying the console version, as it is going to be on every console you can currently get at Best Buy. If you own a last-gen system, if you own a Wii U, if you own a 3DS, if you own a Vita, and if you own a next-gen system, you'll still be able to play it anyways, at least. Now, the original concept material showed a game that looked more polished and with a more consistent art direction than the final game, with the 2D drawings on the Kickstarter page likely giving many backers the impression that the game would have an art direction similar to 2D Rayman games, Vanillaware games, or Shantae. Eventually, thanks to the influx of Kickstarter funds, money was spent on an Unreal Engine 3 license, and due to the fact the game looks unpolished in the end, I think this was a bad idea when it came to connecting this game to the target audience for these types of games. And while there are plenty of people who likely won't give a shit that the game looks like a PlayStation 2 game, many Kickstarter backers are going to feel cheated, especially as many games that use the same exact engine look miles better. Case in point, just look at any big last-gen game that used the Unreal Engine, and there are tons of them. In the end, though, I think the lesson that should be learned about Mighty No. 9 and crowdfunding in general is this. If you back something, it's like pumping money in a slot machine called Kickstarter and expecting a quality product in the end. You'll likely get a product, but you won't know if it's going to be good or the joke of gaming until after it's out. For every Kickstarter success story, such as the Pebble or Oculus Rift, there is a Kickstarter dud, such as Mighty No. 9, the Ouya console, or in some cases, a project even flat out being cancelled and never released, such as Yog Ventures. When you look outside gaming and into the website itself, there are a lot more failed Kickstarters that happened where the customer never got the product, and in nearly every category too. Or in other cases, the product they got was simply flat out garbage. And even some of the more successful Kickstarters have been dogged by controversy as well. From the Facebook buyout of the company developing the Kickstarter-funded Oculus Rift, to Pillars of Eternity ending up causing drama in the entire social justice shitstorm going on in gaming right now, thanks to a backer reward message in the game that ended up triggering somebody on Twitter. And in the end, you really have to think twice before throwing money at a Kickstarter. It doesn't matter if an industry legend is making it, if it ends up being a piece of trash. And even that phrase was true before Kickstarter. Just look at Daikatana. With new Kickstarters for spiritual successors still racking up tons of cash, such as Yooka-Laylee, it seems like many people simply don't care and prefer to use Kickstarters as a pre-order method. Except instead of paying $5 at GameStop, it's full price, and you can't simply change it to a different game if you don't like the direction of where the game's going. That's all that needs to be said. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and when the full game comes out, I'll likely rent it at Family Video or somewhere and do a review on it. Thanks for watching.